before I start, I just want to let you guys know that I'm not a doctor. So I'm not diagnosing anyone. We're just going to be talking about this subject. So, did you know that approximately 3.3 million Americans get diagnosed with an anxiety disorder every year? Did anyone know that?
Yep.
Really?
I did.
I didn't. Did you know that anxiety disorders are the most common mental health disorders in the United States?
Yep.
You guys are educated. I didn't know that before I did this research. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about causes of anxiety, different types of anxiety disorders, and ways to cope with anxiety. Much of the information that I'm using today came from the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. Okay, so number one is the causes. Does anyone know any specific causes for anxiety?
PTSD.
Stress. Panic attack, stress.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to be talking, like those are all right answers, but the three specific causes that I wrote down today are genetics. You can get anxiety disorders from their hereditary. They can be passed down to you. 2 is your brain chemistry. And 3 is life events. So obviously for genetics, so you know you get chromosomes from both of your parents. So the if someone in your family has an anxiety disorder, you're a lot more likely to have an anxiety disorder because of your genes. Brain chemistry, so our brains make certain chemicals, and sometimes people have imbalances, just like hormones. Some people have hormonal imbalances and they need therapy to treat it. So our brain chemicals are the same way. And then the third one that I had was life events. Sometimes stuff happens over and over and over again, and eventually it leads to an anxiety disorder. Okay, the second is forms of anxiety. The first form that I wrote down was a generalized anxiety disorder, and that is just uncontrollable anxiety about everything. Sometimes it's about nothing. That's the best way I can explain that one. 2 is a panic disorder, so that's when hyperventilating comes into play. And people will start panicking, sometimes even in their sleep. Sometimes there's a reason and sometimes there's not. But generally, panic disorders cause more panic than before, because then people start having anxiety about having anxiety. It's just a mess. Social anxiety disorder was number 3. OCD. This one I was all wrong about. So I'm thinking OCD like, okay, so I need everything to be where I put it all the time. But OCD is when you actually can't control the thoughts in your mind. Like, so have you ever been thinking about something and you just keep telling yourself, like, stop, I don't want to be thinking about that? That's what OCD is. I just thought it was about like little specific things that happen. And then the fifth one is PTSD. Obviously, when something traumatic happens in our lives, and it can cause us to have flashbacks, nightmares, PTSD. Okay, so now that you know what anxiety is, I'm going to talk about a little bit how to cope. Okay, so the number one thing that I've always been taught is to practice breathing. Not only when you're experiencing anxiety, but when you're not as well. So then when you teach your body what to do when you're not anxious, it'll be better to try to do that when you are. So what I've always been taught is to go on Google or anything and look up some breathing techniques. Sometimes they'll tell you, okay, breathe in for 10 seconds, breathe out for 5, or they'll tell you do two breaths in, 4 breaths out. Like, they have different breathing techniques to teach your body to be calm. And then sometimes it's hard to rethink of those things once you're in the middle of having anxiety. But if you already know it when you're not, then it's a lot. It can help manage it. Okay, number 2 is limit alcohol and caffeine. I don't think obviously alcohol and caffeine both affect not only the chemicals in our body, but everything in our body as far as our organ functions and everything else. Okay, number 3 is talk to someone. It could be a friend, it could be a therapist. It's preferred that you talk to a professional about it because they know what to do the most. And then number 4 is exercise. Whenever people used to tell me, oh, exercise, it'll help, I used to be like, you want me to exercise and I can't even like talk. I can't move. But after doing some research, I learned that exercise releases endorphins. I never knew that until now. So the endorphins in your brain that your brain could be lacking, which could lead to depression and anxiety, they're released and it causes you to be happy. That's why sometimes people talk about like a runner's high. Like once you run so much and so many endorphins are released. Okay, and then the last one is learn what triggers your anxiety. If you learn what triggers it, you can learn how to prepare yourself ahead of time. You can learn, you can teach yourself what to do when you get into that situation. Obviously, everything's different and it's not going to be exact every single time, but it helps to know what triggers your anxiety. Okay, so those are all of the coping part was the main part that I wanted to discuss because I didn't know some of this stuff. Somehow I didn't know it. But if you feel that you have any type of anxiety, please seek help and learn about it. You're not alone and you're not crazy. That's all.
Have you learned all these things?